Welcome to day 3 of Mastering Astral Projection versus Lucidology. So, I've been working tirelessly with the timer method, and I cannot get it to trigger an OBE, or a lucid experience. I have had plenty of dreams, but I always have plenty of dreams, so the dreams have been really peculiar, though. I've had a lot of dreams about things related to shamanism, like a particular teacher I know having a shaman circle in this old building, something about a shaman roller coaster, which I don't understand what that was about. Um, I've had a dream about a land shark living above a friend of mine. Uh, I had a dream about someone being possessed by an entity and having to slice them in half with the sword. um, and a teaching about entities, which is interesting. Had a number of Native American dreams. Like one was I was setting up a lake resort or a getaway for Native Americans. We were trying to find a date for them so they could come and have some time away from all the projects and ceremonies that they've been doing. Um, uh, just a lot of very peculiar dreams. Um, I also have not been able to get the timer method to trigger anything, and I've worked really hard to get the timing set up correctly where I have the first part of the timer set as a variable and it is relative to when I actually go to sleep. I think that Nicholas wanted people to be able to have a full night's sleep before triggering the timer sequence, and I go to bed at about 1 a.m. So I try to do the timer at 4:30 like he wants people to do in the middle of the night, and that's been pretty challenging to have the timer actually wake me up. It seems like I can hear it go off a couple of times, but I have it set to, let's see, what is it, 4, 8, 12, I think like 14 intervals, and I'm hearing like maybe 2 or 3 of them. The rest of the time it's not waking me up, at least not that I remember, which is very interesting. It's like, well, the timer is supposed to wake you up so that you can focus on going back to sleep, but I'm just sleeping through the whole thing. I've tried adjusting the sound on it, but it seems that if I put the sound volume too high, it scares the hell out of me. It sends a shockwave through my body, and then I can't go back to sleep at all. A number of times the timer will go off, and then I can't go back to sleep, so I'm listening to each of the timers go off. So it's not working. Don't know what to do. He thought it was pretty much a de facto method that would trigger something, and it's not working so far. I finally reviewed the Mastering Astral Projection in 90 Days book on Amazon, and I told them that I was, kind of not really happy with it because I wasn't able to be successful. They suggested that, considering all the work that I've put into this, that I write Robert Bruce directly. So, just to let you know, I've sent out an email to Astral Dynamics, and I put in a help request and pleaded that they send it to Robert. So we'll see what happens. I've gotten into Lucidology 102. Now, the difference between 101 and 102 is that 102 involves visual triggers as opposed to just physical triggers. So, in Lucidology 102, one of the things that Nicholas is trying to get you to understand is that there are these different places around your sensory experience that you see things. And I understand what he's talking about, but I can't bring those experiences about willfully, and that's what he wants you to be able to do. In my experience, and this happens sometimes, and I don't know why, and I've never been able to really control it, but sometimes when I sit down and I go into trance, I can slip into something very deep, which often triggers a visual image to come up. And often it's very fleeting, like probably, I would say, no more than 300-400 milliseconds at the most. It generally is people's faces, which is interesting. They're never people that I know. Last time it happened, I remember like a boy's face. The thing that was interesting was I recently did it, and I saw this beautiful mountain range covered partially with snow, and I was able to hold on to it, and I held on to it for a good 10 seconds. I was up in the sky, and I was looking at treetops, and I was pulling my view back as if I was going backwards, and the amount of content in my peripheral vision was increasing. It was very interesting that I was able to do that, and the experience could have been an OBE. I couldn't really tell you, but I know that when I'm having that visual experience, it triggers something in me. It's a response that's like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And then suddenly I'm staring at the back of my eyelids again. I know what it feels like to move between the two, but I can't control it. It seems to happen on its own, and it seems to only happen when my brain is completely clear of thought. Now, the thing that's interesting is using the stop, drop, and roll technique, where you lay in bed and put your arms over your head, and then you drop your hands by your side after you've fully relaxed, and then you let the roll impulse creep up, and you resist it as long as you can, and then you finally roll over on your side and go to sleep. This has been somewhat effective for going to sleep. I wouldn't say it's a cure for my insomnia. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. However, especially when working with the Robert Bruce techniques, there would be times when I would have my hands by my sides, and I would resist the rollover, and I would go into this place where my thoughts were no longer coming of their own volition. It was more like I had moved into a place of emptiness, and yet I had complete awareness of the room around me, complete awareness of my body and where I was laying, and the roll impulse goes away. And I'm just there in this space where nothing is happening. And it's a physical state of beingness, and yet a mental state of nothingness. And after a while, it gets really boring. And I know that Robert talked about this state. Nicholas hasn't talked about this state. I still wonder what it is and what I can do to trigger something, but it is like this boring state of nothingness. Nothing's going on in your brain. It's very interesting. So I'd like to hear about that, because Nicholas is talking about all these different spaces, knowing where your eyelids are, knowing where you are inside your head, knowing the physical existence around you, and merging all of these states in some way and being cognizant of them. But it still doesn't trigger anything for me. One of the other things that he tries to get you to do is to see or visualize things outside of you, trying to create like a photographic sensibility of. And I won't give you his particular techniques, just so I can be respectful to what he is trying to do, but imagine something outside of you in physical space that creates some surprise, or an arrangement of something, maybe like an arrangement of flowers, or maybe you could take like a handful of rocks and place them into a pattern, and then remember what the pattern is later. Or maybe take, say, random letters and set those magnets, the kitchen magnets that go from A to B. I mean, from A to B. There's a whole alphabet there, from A to Z, with all the different colors. Just imagine arranging them on the surface of a refrigerator, and then don't memorize it. Just go away from it, and then come back to it some other time when you've relaxed again, and see if you see the exact same thing that you set up before without memorizing it. I don't know if I can do that. For me, it's like I set it up and then I memorize it, and I go back and look at it again, and I've memorized it. And So I don't know if that's working either, but he wants you to set that up in physical space and then introduce that into your awareness, because that will actually help you create this way of getting into the head space that you need to be in to create images in front of you. He's also talked about moving or visualizing images in front of you that move really fast, bringing them in and bringing them out really fast. So anything that might do that, any sort of sequence you could create that brings in images, pushes them out, brings in another images, pushes it out, another image, push it out, another image, push it out, bringing these in to kind of bombard yourself with images, and you're intentionally doing this. So, you know, maybe you have a series of photographs you could use, or you know, magazine clippings, or I'm trying to think of an example that's not his. Nothing's coming to me off of the top of my head. But it's just anything that you could move really quickly through. Maybe a book that you have, something like that. So these are things that I've been playing with a little bit, but I have this strange sense that he didn't develop these techniques before he had his first OBE. So trying to do these techniques before you've had the experience of having the OBEs, it's very challenging. I haven't been able to get any of it to work yet. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what I'm working on right now. So that's parts 2 and 3 of his Mastering Astral, of Lucidology. And I've taken all the notes on part 4, and I know what part 4 is all about now. But I'll get into that next time, and hopefully I'll have some success to share with you. And maybe even an email back from Robert Bruce. Would that be cool? So anyway, thanks for listening.